The other medium, of course, is TV. Like I was saying before, TV, the interviews are shorter. I don't know if you ever watch your morning news shows and you see a guest. They're usually about 3.5 to 5 minute interviews. Your national TV, like Fox, CNN, CNBC, when it's a news story, they're also 3.5 to 5 minutes. So you really have to have your sound bites down. But it's a fabulous medium because it is a visual medium. And if you present yourself, and you're all speakers, so you know so much about how to present yourself, right? There's something called a likability factor. If the audience likes you, they stay tuned in, they listen to you. You have that ability with TV as a visual medium that you don't have necessarily with radio and print. The other thing is when you're on TV, you have the ability to use props, charts. I have a client who was he was a life insurance broker. And it's funny because he's an old friend too. And we've recently been in conversation with him coming back on board as a client. He had a book published by Wiley many years ago on estate planning and so on. So we, booked him as a guest on radio and TV. He particularly loved radio, which for me was funny because I couldn't understand it because his topic is life insurance. There's so much of a message there that you have to get out. But he just loved TV. So we did a segment where we pitched a segment about, taking care of your spouse if you die. And we booked him on TV. We booked him on CNBC, and we had a graph showing the mortality rate of men to women and how women, live longer than men. So we booked him on CNBC. He called us up 2 days later, and he was like so blown out because he had 325 calls come into his office off of that 3.5 minute interview. It was phenomenal. But even better, the next week we had him booked on KGO, which is an NBC station in San Francisco. Same interview, we had the same charts. He had over 1,000 leads. We talk about it today because it was so phenomenal. 1,000 leads generated to his business. Folks, I'm only telling you this. I know you're not necessarily in the insurance business. I'm trying to get you to really share with you the power of the media and how it can affect your business. So TV is great. Now let's get into some of the meat here. I think, Allie, is Allie here? I had asked her to hand out. Did you guys get a handout? No? You do? Okay. This is probably the most basic rules. And this really goes to what Adam was trying to explain to you. Some of the don'ts. Oh my God, you never, ever pitch your book. Nobody cares. They don't. I know you've spent a lot of time and effort. The media doesn't care. You always pitch the problem that your expertise solves. Because you have to remember something. The media works in terms of problems, solutions. Right? That's their advertising model as well. They make money through advertising. So for them to keep readers reading their papers and their magazines, listeners tuned into their radio show, and viewers on their TV show, they are having to provide entertaining and informative information for their public. So you need to feed into that. You always want to pitch the problem your expertise solves. Example, I had a client, he was a pediatric endocrinologist, okay? Came to us, he had products. He didn't have a book. He had some products that he had, natural health kind of products. Well, we couldn't go out and say, interview our doctor. He's a big shot, pediatric endocrinologist, New York hospitals. No. We went out talking about the problem that Americans have with children who are diabetic and obese. It is a huge problem in this country. So we went out with that angle, talking about the problem and providing the doctor who is going to offer solutions to the listeners to that show. See? That's kind of how you have to get yourself in the mindset of that. The other thing is you never ever pitch yourself. Again, unless you're a big name celebrity, they don't care. What do they care about? They care that you are an expert on this topic that they want to provide information for their public. So again, never pitch yourself, always pitch the issue that you're an expert on. And I'll give you some examples of that so you can think with it. The fifth thing, and this is so important, you have to think with tying your topic to the news. And again, I don't care what your topic is, every one of you, I guarantee there's something in the news that you can tie your topic to. Let me tell you a little bit about, on this note, how important that is for getting media. Let me give you a day in the life at EMSI, my company. Every morning at 8:30, we have a staff meeting. And what do I do at this staff meeting? I have my TV campaign specialist, my radio campaign specialist, my print specialist, and my senior campaign strategist. The 5 of us sit in a meeting because we've all reviewed the news that morning. We've all listened. I read my paper and I watch the news. My senior campaign strategist hates papers. Everything is on his computer. Everything is CNN.com or whatever. My TV person is watching the news as well. And radio, fortunately, he lives an hour away, so he's listening to talk radio. Point is, we all come in hearing, knowing what the news is, and we sit around, we know what the headlines are, and we figure out, okay, which one of our clients fits into the news? And when we have that, and it doesn't have to be anything major, but if there's a news story and you have a comment on it and your expertise ties in, you want to use it. And the other thing, by the way, is you want to use it right away because it's a news story. You can't wait a week. So you want to come up with your pitch. Immediately, what we do, as soon as we know what we've got, we call our client. We go, okay, what's your comment on this news story? Are you comfortable with us going out and pitching you to national TV or talk radio? And then as soon as we get that agreement, we're in there writing up our pitch. And to national TV, by the way, it's 2 or 3 sentences. That's all. Because these producers don't have the time for a heck of a lot more. You're not writing a manifesto about you, your message, your book. Just you're tying into the news and what your expertise is. I wanted to share with you a story about how this can actually work. Lou up there is a client who came to me in May. And the sad news is he had talked to me about a PR campaign 6 months prior to May. But we didn't get the deal. He called me in May and he said, Marsha, will you take me on as a client? He had just spent $30,000 with another agency. They got him 3 or 4 TV or radio, whatever. The point is, what hurt him was not even so much the money. I mean, it hurt him, but not as much as what they told him. They told him that the media just wasn't interested in him. He wasn't newsworthy, right? Well, of course they had to say that. They had taken $30,000 of his money and only booked him on 3 or 4 radio shows. What else are they going to say? But I was like, oh my God, let me tell you about Lou. Lou is a national talk radio host. Lou had a book that just came out with Career Press he's a financial planner, right? He just had a book that came out with Career Press on financial planning. Hello, are we not in the worst economic times that we've seen in our country for years? And he also positions himself as a financial physician. So I'm hearing they couldn't get you media. I couldn't believe it. He had every quality possible. He loved the media. He had a message with mass appeal, right? He had a book that just came out. It didn't get any better. So we did our normal thing, and we went out on all kinds of financial angles, no big deal. But what happened in one of our meetings one morning, and this is really I kind of want to show you how it works. The night before, this is the BP oil spill happened, right? The night before, I'm seeing Cooper Anderson on CNN, and he's, going to the cities in Mississippi and Louisiana. Some of you may have seen the interviews he did, talking to the people that just lost their home. They just lost their business. They lost everything. And he's interviewing them. I came to office the next day, and I was like, guys, this is Lou. He's our financial physician. It doesn't get any better. Called Lou. Lou, what do you think? He loved it. So obviously, we got them all over TV in those areas. We just followed the areas where Cooper Anderson was, booked him as a guest. The TV loved it because they had the financial physician giving advice to these people who were suffering from the BP oil spill. We got him on CNN, Fox, tons of talk radio and tons of print. We played that out. What did we do? We just followed the news. Janet, another brief story. Janet came to us a few months ago. She's an anger management consultant. And we were doing, just the typical anger management problems that people have. Well, then we hit kind of a trifecta. I hate even saying this because it's bad news, but we were able to capitalize off of that for our client Janet. You remember Mel Gibson's story? Yeah? Okay. Well, right after Mel Gibson, and I wouldn't know this except I was following it, was the story about the guy in Connecticut who shot up 9 people that he worked for a distributor. I think it was a beer distributing company. He went and killed 9 of his employees and shot himself because he was mad. And then right after that, and I'm telling you guys, it was almost like 1 week after the other, these 3 things happened. The JetBlue guy, the JetBlue employee, right? We were like, oh my God, we couldn't even wrap up on the Mel Gibson thing because there was just so much news out there about angry people. Of course, we booked her, CNN, Fox. We just had her all over the news. We're still getting repercussions from the media that was out there. And you know what else happened, by the way? We booked her on CNN. She was so good. We got a call the next day from Joy Behar's producer to find out if she would be available to appear as one of Joy's guests the next time they do the Mel Gibson thing. And we were like, of course. But that would never have happened if Janet didn't step into the PR arena with her message, okay? And I'm sure each one of you can imagine having that, being interviewed as a guest on CNN or Fox or CNBC for your resume, for your speaker kit. It's impressive. It says you have credibility, is what it says. If they're interviewing you, you must be good. Janet, right now, actually, is filling out an application with GMA, who is looking for an anger management anchor, to come in whenever there's a story. So that, guys, is so relevant. Follow the news. Figure out, okay, what about what's in the news do I have a comment on? And how do I turn that into a pitch to the media? Here's something very key also. You really need to pay attention to this. This is so important. These are actually questions that I made up for our clients. And you need to really know the answer to these questions. You can take home the form that I gave you. Because I think not only is it going to be relevant for you with the media, but even no matter for all your speaking gigs, for whoever you're going out there to pitch. The funny thing is, I wrote these questions, 20 years ago for my clients. And then, when I came out with my book, obviously I said to my guys, okay, pitch me. I'm your new client. And they said, okay, if you're going to be a client, you have to act like a client. You need to fill out your questionnaire. So I sit down to try to answer these questions, and I was stumped. It took me days. It seems like they're simple questions, particularly the first 2, but I was really stumped. Anybody have an idea why that first question is so important? Any idea? You're all speakers. You all have something you're passionate about.
I think the passion shows, particularly on TV, the passion shows.
That's right.
That's how people pick up.
You're exactly right. And here's the other reason. That's spot on. Here's the other reason. I had enough experience. A client comes to me. I have to figure out, okay, what's their angle? They know what they want to talk about. That isn't, just like Adam said, it isn't necessarily what the media wants. We've got to come up with what's the angle. Well, here's what I know. I serve 2 clients. I serve the media, because, man, they're my clients. If they turn us off, we're shut off. I also serve my clients who pay us. So I've got to give the media good people to be interviewed as a guest. So what do I know? I know that if I can tap into whatever my client is passionate about, he's going to give a great interview. Even if it's his first, he's more likely to give a really good interview. And the same thing would be true with your speaking engagements. When you're up there talking about what you are passionate about, you're on, man. You're on fire. So that is really key. And you know, the